the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. My name is Brian Wallace, and I am the MS Michigan Man 64. The MS Michigan Man 64 podcast is about chronic disease awareness. I have had multiple sclerosis for the last 27 years. It's an invisible chronic disease that I've been battling for half of my life. I want to share with you what it is like living with the chronic disease from my experiences and the experiences of other chronic disease warriors. We can fight to have a voice to those that want to listen. Together, we can motivate and educate. Hi, and welcome to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. Today, I am privileged to be sitting down and talking to a 4'9" badass from the state of Maryland, city of Baltimore. She's had multiple sclerosis for 20 years, and her name is Elle. How are you doing, Elle?
Well, at the moment, I'm going to say I'm doing quite all right. But as you know, in our world, we're never always 100%. Yep. I'm about an 85, so today I'm about an 80.
That's good. You know what? 80's a good day for us, though, really, right?
I'll take an 80. I'll take an 80 any day. Any day.
Absolutely. So, Elle, when you were diagnosed 20 years ago, kind of take us through what happened. What were your symptoms that, alarmed you something was going on? And, what was your path on how you ended up getting diagnosed?
Okay, well, it started around 2004, and the reason why I say I was diagnosed in 2004 because that's when my symptoms started really hitting me hard. And what happened is that I would get on the treadmill. I'll be on a treadmill for maybe 2 minutes. I'd get extremely exhausted, and then also it would feel like I had my clothes on in a pool full of water. It was that weird sensation. I would have all kinds of little knee pain, spasticity. Didn't know at the time that's what it was called. I had just had a baby maybe a year prior to that. So of course everything was probably contributed to postpartum.
Yeah.
But it kept lingering on, and then I thought about my aunt, and I would ask her because my aunt on my dad's side and my aunt on my mom's side both had at that point in time already had MS about 10 and 20 years each.
Okay.
So I would ask them little questions like, hey, have y'all ever experienced this and that or whatever? And my one aunt was like, get to the doctors immediately. I've been here. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay. I did procrastinate a little bit because that was something that I did not want to really know for sure. Right. But it was also something I didn't think I really had either because I had no problems up until then. But I was only 26. So up until then is 5 minutes,
right.
You know?
Right.
So I decided to go to the doctors. And then at this time, and if you can imagine, I just had a baby not too long ago. I was about 150 something pounds, which is pretty heavy for someone at 4'10".
Right.
So they were like, maybe it's a weight problem. And I'm like, I've never heard people with a weight problem complain about the problems I'm having. My eye sensations around my ribs, those little things.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah,
I did was.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with weight.
Oh.
No, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with weight. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So I dropped 20 pounds, 30 pounds, and a couple of months, came back. Okay, I dropped the weight, still having a problem. Now what? She's looking me dead in my face and well, have you seen a psychiatrist?
A psychiatrist? And I really looked
her dead in her face. Yes. I wasn't aggravated or annoyed that much by this point. And I was like, okay, no. So then I said, you know what? I'm just going to get another doctor. It was a colleague of hers.
Yeah.
Who, of course, I guess, share information, came back almost verbatim the same words.
Oh, of course.
That's when I got irritated. So then I moved to another doctor. Mind you, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I got to see 5 doctors before I actually just went without a referral saying, I'll do whatever I got to do. Just help me.
So hold on a second, Elle. Let me back up and just ask you a question. So you're going through all these doctors and all that, and nobody with all your symptoms has said, hey, let's do an MRI, let's check for this, because nobody. That is unbelievable.
No.
Okay. Wow.
That takes me into '05. This was probably 5 doctors I've seen. And then I finally get, in '05, I finally get to a neurologist. He's like, well, maybe it's Lyme disease, Guillain-Barré. He named all of these things like I felt like I was watching House. And I was like, okay, can we talk about the obvious thing it could be, which is MS? And he just refused to even look at MS. And I would say to him, what is the problem with even looking at it? Is it because I suggested it?
Yeah.
Like, what is the problem?
What was his answer? What was the answer to that?
Well, normally white women get it. And I said, well, you know what? That normally could be true. However, abnormally, I got 2 black aunts with it.
So wait. Okay, wait. Elle, again, I got to ask a question. So you had a doctor ask you or tell you that normally white women get this disease, and you're a black female. You have a doctor telling you that it's normally a white woman's disease. That is unbelievable right there. That is unbelievable right there.
Yes. And I said to him, so only white women get this disease. No, I'm not saying only. Okay. Well, I could be the exception with my aunts. And so we went through the Lyme disease. We went through all this crazy testing. And then one of his students finally kind of like took a liking to me, I want to say. And her name was Dr. Venkatramana. And I may be messing that word up, but she had a fondness for her that I will always remember. Yeah. She was very kind to me. She was very patient. And she would ask me, well, why do you think that? Yeah. And I gave her all the lists. And she said, well, I finally asked him if I can take over your case and just look at you a little bit more. And basically to shut her up and to get me out of his hair, he passed me along to her. And when I tell you, she tried to give me a spinal tap, because that's what she wanted to do. I said, a spinal tap? Really? I didn't know that's how they, really diagnose it or whatever. But she wanted to run away with this whole MS idea. So absolutely, let's go. That did not work. It was a horrible experience to the point where my husband had to come in and say, stop, that I was screaming so bad because it was so painful. Yeah. I had been the first one that she had did, but because this is Johns Hopkins and it's a teaching hospital, a custodian could probably try something on me. That's how crazy it was. So then I said, you know what? This is not going to work. And she did not give up. She said, I have another idea. We can do it under fluoro. And I was like, really? Okay, fine. Let's do it. So did it. And when I tell you about a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, and this was at the end of '05 going into '06, where she said to me, it was January. She said, oh, my God, Lynn, you're not going to believe this. That's my middle name. She was like, you're not going to believe this. It's multiple sclerosis. And she was so excited and so happy. We're both excited and happy to know. Yeah. And then it hit me because then I was like, oh my God, now what?
Right. Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah. And Elle, I totally understand that feeling that you had because mine was a little bit kind of like yours. I mean, they did that spinal tap thing. It was painful. I couldn't make it through that. And that totally frustrated the hell out of me. And I walked away from the diagnosis for like 10 months. And then when I started getting worse again, that's when I found the neurologist that ended up diagnosing me. And he just looked at me and he's like, Brian, he goes, you got an MRI in here that has lesions and you got MS. And I go, okay, that's it. I go, that's it. You don't want to stick a needle in my spine? He goes, no. He goes, we need to get you on a DMT right away. But it was like, it was just the difference of a provider, that got me diagnosed, because the neurologist that I had before me, he was just spinning me and he was doing the same thing. He had residents coming in, looking at me and, they weren't taking me serious. And then the second one is the one that ended up getting diagnosed. And it's a feeling of relief. I get that. I totally understand that too, Elle, because when I got diagnosed, I was like, all right, game on. Now how do we attack this?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it was for me. It was like, okay, now that we know what it is, now what? But my now what for me, like took you like 10 months. It took me a while too, because as it was, I always say 20 years because that's when I started having those symptoms and they ignored me. Mm-hmm. But let me back up for a minute. I did get an MRI in late '05 and they did see the lesions, but they did not think that that's what they were like, well, we see them, but like it could be anything.
Yep.
It could be anything. It could be MS. Are you going to explore that? And they didn't yet. That was when that's when the medical student came in.
Yep.
And I will say this, at my first meeting with her, it became her specialty. She said that I was the one that made her figure out what her concentration should be.
Oh, wow.
And it was multiple sclerosis. And we cried together for a minute. And for me, I'm crying for myself. I think she was crying for herself too, because she finally figured her life out. And it was just like a student right there and a patient finding something. I can't explain it.
Like
but,
you just had that instant connection to her. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes. And then from then on, I said that I would never have another doctor that I don't respect the way I respect her, or feel the same respect, because I have no problem leaving a doctor and letting you know why. Because Johns Hopkins is famous for giving out those surveys, and I do blast them every time. I only got to see you one time to feel disrespected or not heard before I'm gone. What you will not do is play in my face the way that y'all have played in my face for the past 2 years. And I actually went back to that doctor who told me that I was just fat. I made an appointment with her, and I read her. And I know it probably didn't mean anything for her, whatever, but it felt good for me.
Yeah.
And I let her know, and I left off with a sister, because she was a Black woman who ignored me. And I told her, I hope the next woman that comes in here, you do her way better than what you did me. And I said, sister, and I left out, and I have never seen her again. I've never gone back to her practice. However, a month after that, her partner did reach out to me, and I let her know exactly. I said, the reason why I didn't make an appointment with you because I didn't want to pay 2 co-payments, but you got what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And she apologized greatly. I said, y'all are not only doctors, but y'all provide customer service and care for people that don't know what the hell is going on with them.
Yeah.
Amen. And I said, y'all need to do better.
Yeah. Amen. Elle. I totally agree with you. It's just so crazy, the difference in providers. You know, the first neurologist that was trying to diagnose me, it was the exact same way. And when I found my second one, and that was what gave me the attitude too with doctors. You know what? If I don't like you, I'm gone. You know, I'll give you 1 shot. I might give you 2 shots, but that's it. I'm done after that. You know, because this is my body. This is my life. I'm not playing your games.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then of course, when I was diagnosed, I had only been married about 3 years.
Yeah.
So that right there is another thing that it takes a toll.
Yeah.
Even when you're first diagnosed and you know what's wrong, that's only the beginning of everything. It's only the beginning of any marital problems, financial problems, work, anything.
Yeah.
And just knowing, and my diagnosis for me is a major reference in time. For me, I don't remember anything much happening before 04. I know I remember things happening, but everything for me is measured in my diagnosis. Time for me is measured in relapses and pain.
Yep.
That's how I keep track of things. I can be like, 2014, yes, I was in the hospital in September. I remember that.
Yeah.
That's how it is for me with having a chronic illness. That's how you consider time. You
know what, Elle? It's the exact same way with me. If you throw a year out, if like say 2015, oh yeah, that's when I crashed. That's when I went out on disability. Yep. My MS took a shit.
Yep.
And I totally get that. Hey, Elle, you said something before that I really want to touch on. I think is really, really important. You said the diagnosis is like a shock for everybody involved with you. And you said you were married at the time. How did your husband handle the diagnosis? Because I know the spouse, you know, that is a shock just as much for the spouse as it is for the actual person getting the diagnosis. So how did that go with your husband?
I want to say that because we were very young, and at the time, I really don't think he understood what it was I was going through, or what I could go through, because it's such an unpredictable illness. Mm-hmm. I think that even he had a hard time rationalizing, seeing me go to work every day, come home, do everything, and then crash. Can't do anything with him. But you see me do all these things. Oh, you're tired? Right. Like not understanding how this illness works and how it looks on the outside. Right. How somebody can be fully functioning, have a good time all day, laugh, but on the inside secretly dying.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I was like, and for me, I'm a woman. I work through labor pains. I mean, it's like, and I try to say, this can't stop me. I got to keep going. You need me to roll over and die.
Right.
But it was just it was, you still learn. And even though it's been 20 years, I want to say he really, really started understanding maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
And I want to say that I've never really had the talk, like to say, what happens if I get worse? Like, I don't want to know. Yeah. I am a person that keeps her head in the sand sometimes. I'd rather cross that bridge when I get there.
Yeah. And I relate to that because I don't think about ever me being to the point where I'm in a wheelchair, and I don't like to discuss that, but it is a reality with us, and it's always in the back of our head, and it's in
always,
and I know that if it's in the back of our head, it's got to be in the back of our spouse's head too. And I want to take my hat off and say, your husband's an awesome guy. He's still around, and he's still, with you and supporting you 20 years later. And that is an awesome thing. And I just tell him, kudos to him. He's a good guy. Because I know how tough it is. I know that, when you have an episode, there could be days where you can't get out of bed, and to have a spouse that understands that. And even though it took him 10 years, at least he didn't bail and say, you know what, I'm done. I'm out. He stuck around, and that's awesome, because this disease destroys marriages. It destroys everything.
It does.
It destroys everything in its path if you let it. You got to fight to not let it destroy anything.
Yeah, it can. I mean, even like on the inside, like you personally on the inside, like I felt like a burden. I felt like maybe I don't even deserve to.
Yeah.
Still go and I'm like looking at him and telling him, we're young. I don't know what's going to happen to me in 5 years.
Right.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to work, and I'm trying to let him know. But at the same time, I don't think he realized how bad it actually is, and also how maybe not bad it can be.
Yeah.
And because I've had such extremes where I've been in a hospital for a week or two, and then I've been to the point where I haven't had anything wrong in a year and a half.
Yeah. It's just such an up and down disease. It's the same thing with me. I think the longest stretch I ever made it in 27 years without having an episode is 3 years. But I've also had years, 12-month periods where I've had 3 episodes.
Yeah, see, and that's the crazy part. And I feel like my anxiety comes from every time I've had a relapse. It's when I've gone to bed. The night before, I'm perfectly fine. I wake up and something dastardly is fucking wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I developed a fear of going to sleep.
Wow.
And at first, I didn't know if it was because of the MS that my chronic insomnia. But then, of course, when you go through therapy or whatever, they're like, you probably are scared. I was literally scared to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Because I've always waken up. I woke up with the MS hug one time, and I just wanted to die. And I'm not bullshitting you. I'm not saying, oh, yeah, I just, no. It is the worst symptom I've ever had.
Yeah.
In my entire life.
It is. It's terrible. And the MS hug, and, it goes in different parts of the body. I get it around my groin area on my left side. It goes around and it feels like somebody's got a rope or a wire, and 2 people are just pulling each, they're just pulling on both sides.
There's no relief.
No, nothing.
I always say it feels like a boa constrictor wrapped around me, and every breath you take, I feel like I can hear my ribs like cracking. Mm-hmm. But my thing is, why the hell do they call it a hug? A hug is sweet and nice and caring. This raggedy bitch is not that.
No.
MS hug sounds so sweet. We got an MS hug? Bitch, no, I'm being strangled.
Yeah.
That's what I have, the MS strangle. Yeah. Is what I have.
No, yeah, it's far from a hug. Yeah, I totally freaking agree with you on that one. So you mentioned another thing with anxiety and all that, and I had the same issues. I think a lot of MSers do the same thing, but a lot of them are in denial. The mental health part of it, like it literally, I ignored it for 15 years. I was like, oh yeah, mentally I'm good. But I wasn't. I mean, I was dealing with so many different things just from my life. And then on top of it, the MS and all that, I didn't start addressing my mental health until 2015. Thank God I did, because it really, really did help me. just with the anxiety, getting on a med, talking to a counselor. Did you,
Yep.
I mean, like, where were you in your diagnosis where you said, you know what, I gotta get help with the mental part of it?
I will say that was maybe a couple of years until when I was realizing that I was just like, I want to say reckless, but I just didn't care. I was like, whatever, I'd say anything. Like,
Yeah.
I just didn't care.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of things going on. I was first on Avonex. Avonex gave me the flu for 29 hours, literally 29 hours after each injection. So
Yep.
I literally had to look forward
Yep.
to the flu every week
Yep.
for 7 years.
Elle, you may,
Anxiety.
Elle, I cannot, and this is the only reason I'm cutting you off on this. I cannot believe that you did that drug for 7 years. That was my
7 years.
That was my first DMT. When I first got diagnosed, my neurologist put me on it. I'm like, okay, and I made it a month. I went to him.
Damn.
I went to him after 1 month and I said, Doc, I can't do this. I go to work Monday through Friday. I get home Friday. I do the shot Friday. I'm sick till Sunday. And then I get up and do it again. Yep. I go, I can't do that. And he said,
and I did it every week.
I can't believe you did that for 7 years, Elle. I mean, he put me on Copaxone, and I did Copaxone every day for 15 years after that, and I never had any issues. I couldn't imagine doing Avonex for 7 years. I couldn't imagine that.
But you know what? And the reason and the thing behind that is because I had my head in the sand. I didn't think there were other therapies out there for me. I took the first one that I was offered, like, oh, really? Okay, let me give me that one. Just give it to me. And then I would take it, and I would get so upset because I couldn't. And I took it on the weekends because I had to still go to work.
Yeah,
but then I couldn't do anything else on the weekends because of the medicine. And then I would sit up here and be like, the very medicine that's supposed to build me up is tearing me down.
I cannot believe.
And then the mental part of it, I got to the point where, you know what, it might be just better to hurt than to heal, because healing is a whole different struggle. And it was. And being on a DMT with a terrible side effect, while you're trying to get better and heal, the very medicine is tearing you the fuck down.
Oh my God, Elle, I can't imagine that. And like I said, the only reason that I know is because I've lived it, and I can't imagine that you went through that for so when you finally changed your DMTs, what did you end up getting switched on? What switched to?
I ended up going to something even worse. I went to Rebif. I hated Rebif so much. The injections, the spots, I had to either in my abdomen, my thigh, or my leg.
Yeah.
And it was probably, I want to say, the worst experience of my life.
So I don't have any experience on Rebif. What did that one like? Did it make you feel like sick or anything? I mean, what were the side effects you experienced on that one?
It didn't make me. I don't remember if it made me sick or not, but the injection sites were so painful.
Yeah.
The injection sites got puffy and sore. It scarred. Mm-hmm. It made the tissue under the skin hard.
Oh, okay.
So I had to keep switching injection sites, and it got to the point where I would cry because I couldn't find an injection site. Like I had to muster up the just to even do it, just to even get the needle. Yeah. And I want to say this, going back to Avonex real quick. I was doing that before the injection pen. So it was actually a damn needle that my 5-year-old daughter would help me take because mommy is sick.
Yeah. Wow.
But she was already, I've lived with this illness so long, since she was a baby, that this is her way of life. She don't know a healthy mother.
No. So my kids don't either, Elle. My kids actually would press the plunger down for me when I would put it in my leg. I did that just to get them acquainted with the disease, so they weren't afraid of it when they got old enough to understand it a little bit. Me and my ex-wife at the time, we were married, and, that was the decision that we made is like, I don't want our kids to like not understand MS. So I just,
How old were your children?
well, my kids now are 26 and 22. But they've never known me without MS. I was diagnosed in I was 27 years old, and I had my son. My wife had our son when I was 29. So they've never known me without MS. So
we almost have the same story. Our children are the same age. My son is 28 and my daughter's 21.
Yeah. A lot of our story. That's why I have been visioned in on you, Elle, watching your videos and all that, is because you sound a lot of your stories are the same as me. You're a black female, I'm a white male, and you've been told things that were like completely flipped and told to me. Like I was told that it was a black female disease, it was a female disease, and it was a black disease, and it's just like a lot of our story is similar. It's similar but different, and that's why I kind of like elevate to you, and I love you know what else I love about you, Elle, and I want you to talk about this too, is because you've had this disease for 20 years. I see your videos. You're always so positive. You always have a smile on your face. You're a beautiful lady. How do you keep your attitude so positive? And you just like, you're just like, this is MS. But I live with it and I deal with it. And you always have a smile on your face. How do you do that?
I definitely want to say that MS has definitely shined a light on the love that my family and friends have for me. That's probably the one good thing MS has done. I hear a lot of people say that their families and friends, they get ghosts because they don't know how to deal with it, or maybe you don't hang out as much, or maybe you've changed because pain changes you. Mm-hmm. And my support system have been great with the ups and downs. And my friends don't let me get down. They laugh at me, as you can see by my posts. Yeah. Listen, I've run into a wall clean in front of their face. Yep. And we will laugh about it. But I have good, strong relationships that I built before I had MS. Yeah. But that just continued through MS. And my friends may not understand what I'm going through, but they love me through it. Yeah. So if Elle can't come out to dinner tonight, hey girl, FaceTime me. Hey y'all. Yeah. They understand. And I also make concessions for them. I will plan something well in advance and make sure I show up. So that's what I do. I mean, I show up for them. They show up for me. If I got to crawl in there to wherever I got to be, I'll be there for them. And then when I can't do it, they like, okay, girl, we know you can't. Yeah. And that's just what friends do. I may not talk to them for a month or two because maybe I'm in my feelings. Maybe I'm feeling some kind of way. But they give me that space and grace to be that way because I give it to them. They may not have MS, but they got other shit going on. So it's always important to have that. And also check when you're feeling good, check on your good friends because they might not be so good. You never know what somebody has going on. Yeah. So for me, not checking out has saved me because this is a disease where you can easily check out and be like, you know what? I ain't even taking a goddamn shower today because I don't fucking feel like it. And sometimes I don't. Yeah. But, I'd say that, having just a good support system, this illness, even though it's a solitary illness, you still need people around you just to check on you and just to be thought of. Being thought of is so important. Just, I was on your mind. Oh my God. Thank you. Just those little things matter.
And I agree with you 100%. And it's even, with our kids, everybody that is involved in our life, it makes us feel better just having that, hey, how you doing today? You having a good day? I totally agree with you 100% on that, Elle. Support is huge with this disease because this is a very lonely disease, because we're the ones that deal with it 24/7, and just having people just, hey, how you feeling today? And that does mean a lot. And this disease for me has made me a lot more compassionate just to people in general. I don't know if it's done the same thing to you. I mean, I totally understand other people's struggles a lot better than I did 20 years ago. And I think
I definitely agree with that. My mother had breast cancer prior to me being diagnosed. So being around her and seeing how those nurses treated her and versus how I was treated, I knew how I should be treated. And I think that may have been one of the reasons why I was such an advocate for myself and didn't just roll over, because I had just watched my mother go through the same thing of trying to get diagnosed, dealing with insurance and stuff like that. Yeah. But I also come from a long line of strong women, so you weren't going to put baby in a corner, okay? Because I ain't in nobody's goddamn corner.
I could tell you. So, I can tell you come from a strong line of females, Elle, just by looking at you. Yes. That doesn't surprise me at all. You are just a badass, man. Like I said, you're 4'10" or whatever, and you're 100 pounds. I'm 6'5" and 290 pounds, and I wouldn't fuck with you. You just look like you would like eat me up, man. But you know,
it's like people want you to roll over. Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't have time for all that. I got a grandbaby. I have a husband. I mean, and you can't even begin to understand how MS affects a marriage. Yeah. You know, well, not you, but, you know, people in general. Right. Because all of that plays a part. I may be too tired to fulfill those duties. I need an understanding partner that knows that, you know, and I ain't going to give you no explanation. Just know that I can't. But to those partners that don't want to stick around for it, I don't blame them either. Just be upfront. Yeah. Because when you get married and they say through sickness and health, shit, what kind of sickness? Because that matters. Right. Not everybody can handle this and built for this.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And I thought about Meredith Vieira from The View, whose husband just passed away from it. And I cannot imagine how emasculating that could have been for him, for her to have to help him to the very end. Yeah. With things like that. So having a strong, supportive partner, if you don't have anything else, have a good partner. And if your partner, and if you are a partner of someone that has a chronic illness and you can't do it, be straight up. Yeah. Be honest. Don't be cruel and stay out of duty, and we know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that hurts more.
It does. And, you know, and I'm finding out more and more about, you know, and it's males too, because I talked to a guy over in the UK. I talked to some people over here in the United States, and they're in these narcissistic relationships, and it's just, it like kills me. It kills me to hear, you know, the abuse that people take that have this chronic disease from their partners, and it's sad, and because
they are afraid. You're afraid to be alone. Yep. You're afraid of not having no care, so you take any care, and sometimes it's the best that you can do. Yeah. And my heart goes out to people like that. That's why I never know what anyone's going through. So people on here, and then I will say, since you coming on my TikToks, I have never been this open about multiple sclerosis, only because I've heard, you don't look sick, or I don't know, stupid shit, or like, oh, you should get on herbs, maybe you should pray more. I didn't want to hear the internet doctors come at me. So that's probably another reason why I have never been so open until I got to TikTok. Because I've been on Instagram for years, and I never talked about it.
You know, Elle, again, very similar stories. I've never been on social media up until last January, and my daughter's the one that got me on TikTok, and I started posting about my MS. Before that, I didn't want to talk about my MS to anybody. You know, it was my disease, and it was my problem, and I didn't want to deal with it. And when I started going on TikTok and talking about it, that's pretty much what opened me up. You know, and that's what gave me the idea, my daughter and I, to come up with this podcast. Is like, you know what,
daughter.
You know what? Let's just start talking about this shit, man, because people don't understand it. You know?
No. Oh my God, you would not. Yes, a lot of people do not understand. Some people are like, oh, it's like muscular dystrophy. The crazy things that I hear, I'm like, no. And I always try to reference Montel, and then I'll say something like Richard Pryor, and then they'll be like, no, Richard Pryor does not have what Montel had. Did you see him?
Yeah.
That's the point I'm making. That this illness looks different.
Yeah. You know, and I don't know.
For everyone.
I don't know if you remember Laverne and Shirley, but back
I sure do.
Yeah, back in the day, Squiggy had MS, and
did not know that.
Yes, and he had it, and he was in a wheelchair, And, you know, I was like sitting here going, why isn't he using his voice to like, you know, his fame to like show what this disease is really about? You know, but it was like I just read an article on him. I just happened to come across it, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know he had MS, and he had it, and he was in a wheelchair, and I'm like, he should be talking about it. You know, just to like,
I didn't either.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think these stars that get it, they really need to. You know, I think Christina Applegate has it too, and
Selma Blair.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were on Instagram, and when she was first diagnosed, we talked. Well, it was my old page before it got deleted. We talked all the time because I reached out to her when she was first diagnosed, letting her know, like, you know, this is a life sentence, doesn't have to be a death sentence. It's a whole community out there. And she was like, I can't believe it. I'm putting her on. I'm not taking my own advice. And she actually has been very, very vocal about it. Christina Applegate, you love her sense of humor. And, I love that they're using their platform. I know you probably got to do it in your own time, the way I did. Because like I said, people didn't know that I had it for a long time because people would say, oh, but you don't walk funny.
Right.
And honestly, I can tell that I'm very comfortable talking to you about this because I haven't stumbled like I normally do, because it takes me a minute to get through something because my issues are more cognitive than anything.
Yep.
And you can't see that. So when I'm in my head thinking about trying to spell a word, but also wondering what's going to happen in 10 years, all in the same sentence, all at the same time.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, and then, and people don't talk about those things. They don't talk about those things. They don't talk about the sexual side of it.
Yep.
When you're married.
Yep. And that's a whole nother conversation. We could talk about that for a few minutes here. The sexual part of it, you know, and that's another part that I don't think people even understand. They don't even really want to talk about. But I know for a guy, you know, we have Viagra. So if me and my wife wanted to, you know, we like, you know, we want to do something tonight, I could take a pill. I don't know what females can even do, because I know that for a guy, it wasn't like this the whole time, but like within the last 5 years, it's like the numbness and tingling, it's down there too. You know,
because why wouldn't it be? Nerves are down there just like they are in our fingers and our toes.
Exactly.
And that's what I try to explain to people. I'll be like, for me personally, and the other women that I spoke with, there's no feeling. The same way you lose finger in your pinky toe, you lose it down there too. And who wants to do it? If I can't participate fully, I don't want to be there.
Right.
You know,
right.
So it's like, you know, you have to be creative. You have to think of other things because there's other things, other intimate things you can do besides actual sex. And I think that people in the situation where you're chronically ill, that could be a little bit more fun, because then you get to find other things to be intimate. You may discover things about each other that you didn't know. Like, oh, I didn't know you like it like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah.
You can't. Don't just give up. Don't just throw in a towel, because you can't have the biblical kind, and you can't do. You know, there are other things to do. A lot.
Absolutely.
But yes, Ryan, we could go on and on about that forever. However, I don't want my fatigue to set in, so let me get to doing my errands and everything that I got to do today. But this is not the last time we're going to talk about this.
Oh, hell no, Elle. Hell no. I'm going to have you on, because you are, like I said, you're always full of piss and vinegar. I love your attitude. You say it like it is, which I think is a good thing in talking about this disease, because, you know, I want people to know exactly what it's like to have this disease, because I think it educates people and it helps people to be a little bit less ignorant about the disease. And and I think it's a good thing that we are trying to give people a little bit more intelligence about chronic diseases.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bringing awareness to this, I am all for it, because an alarming amount of people are being diagnosed, and the more information we can get out there and spread it, the better, because there are people being diagnosed every day. I see people all on my timeline and my feed, diagnosed, this guy diagnosed, and I'm like, come on, sister, let's talk.
But it's scary. It's scary, but it you can still live a great life. You know, I won't say a great life, but you can still live a good life. You know, I work. You can
still have some quality. Yes, absolutely. Don't ever throw in a towel. Don't roll over. There's somebody out here online or whatever. But Brian, thank you so much for doing this and having this podcast and shedding light, because you actually got first person to get me to open up about this. So thank you so much. And please don't stop.
Oh, I'm not stopping, Elle. As long as I have a voice, I'm going to be using it, because I know MS can take that too. So you got to use it before you lose it.
Yep.
So Elle, I really thank you so much for coming on.
Aww.
And
thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely, Elle. I will have you on as much as you want to talk about MS, because I just want people to understand it a little bit better. So this is MS.
Absolutely.
Yep. Thank you, Elle. So this is MS Michigan Man 64. I am out. Always remember, hit the subscribe, follow button. Give me, if you have any questions for me or Elle, go ahead and leave them in the comments section. I will get a hold of Elle, ask her, and I will get the answer back to you. Also follow me on Instagram, MS Michigan Man 64. I'm on TikTok, MS Michigan Man 64, and you can also find me on Facebook, Brian Wallace. This is the MS Michigan More 64 podcast signing out. I'll talk to you later.